Well, another reason I went 25 Bravo was on these secret networks. One of the Bravos had managed to smuggle in Command and Conquer and Age of Empires onto the secret network. So at night, like us and the battle captains, the captains who were assigned to like tracking the battlefield, monitoring all these things, would play like Age of Empires, until some mortars started falling, and then we'd have to stop and do our work, do our job.
All tab out and
yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, I would like to take us back a little bit and ask a little bit more about the recruiting, if that's all right.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know whether you want me to stop.
No, you're fine. So I try not to I don't want it to be like an interview show. You know what I mean? It's your story, so I try to just keep the wheels on the road a little bit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're telling stuff that you feel is important, like I don't want to stop that unless we start going off on like fried chicken recipes that have nothing to do with the military. You know what I mean? Like unless it's pertinent to your experience.
I've got fried chicken story. and I'm sorry to pause you. I might need a charging cable. Second to pause,
you gotta do
because I didn't ask and I don't remember. You were a Cav Scout, weren't you?
I worked in transportation. I was an 88 in November, so I was transportation management coordinator.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. My bad. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Well, so recruiting, you said it was soul destroying, and so that's the thing. In like talking to, I don't know if I've maybe met like one recruiter who was like a happy person, and not to say that they were bad people, but that's all I've ever heard is that like recruitment sucks. And so to kind of, because that's part of the whole point on this is to expand a little bit and to help people gain some insight on stuff they don't realize. So like you talk about Germany was awesome and you loved it and it was great. And then like everyone you talk to who goes to Hawaii, they're like, Hawaii sucks. Like, oh, why is it, like, oh, you're in paradise, aren't you? Like, I've never met anyone in the Army who liked being stationed in Hawaii,
Yeah.
So when it comes to recruiting, on the surface, you would think like, oh, that's not that bad a job. Like, you go into an office and you sign people up for the military. But in reality, it's like, nah, man, you're working your butt off to hit all these different schools and get people into the office, and you have quotas you're supposed to hit. You're trying to recruit so many people every month. You work late. You're driving people back and forth to get their medical stuff done, and it's like there's a lot more to it. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of explaining the reality of recruiting.
Well, so I mean, caveat here. This was the reality 15 years ago. There have been some rules put in place to prevent some of this from happening now, but this is how it was then. And there's definitely some things that made it really bad that were specific to my case. So number one, I'd only been in the Army for close to 3 years. I was 21. I didn't know squat about the Army. I was a tanker who went to Iraq and came back. I hadn't done any schooling. My experience up to that point wasn't particularly bad, but I'm not going to be out there convincing some kid like, hey, this is the route to like get the dream job that you want with college education, because I hadn't done it. I hadn't done anything. There was no way that I was going to be talking to some married dude with 2 kids that about how, or there's no way I was going to be able to something like this was going to be a good career shift, because I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some resentment on my part of the Army for some general said, yeah, we need some young guys. They can talk well with the other young kids. And, well, I mean, I could tell you about like staying up for 18 hours a day in Iraq if you want, and not showering for exciting. With, had like a bucket to drip some water into, I could tell you about that. And,
but you got to play Game Boy while doing it.
Yeah, heck yeah. I sat on guard, I watched some mortars fall in the distance and I played my Game Boy sometimes. So I didn't have the tool set. On top of that, back then, still even now to a certain extent, but back then I was fairly introverted and didn't speak well to folks. and you have to do something. And so, they would have you basically have a workflow of you need to contact X amount of people to get Y amount of, potential appointments, and then conduct, Z amount of those appointments, and then attempt to enlist a number of those people. And that math had to be worked into a planner. We write by hand every single week. So I had a black leather bound planner and write down by the hour what I was doing, what I planned to do. And at its absolute worst, and also, I didn't mention this, when I arrived, when I got out of recruiting school and arrived at the station I was assigned to was the lowest producing station in the state. So it already wasn't a good market.
And I'm sure you had the brass all up your butt about that.
Yes. Yeah. And also this was 2005, 2008, when the war in Iraq was really bad, like all we were doing over there was getting blown up by IEDs.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a hard sell, unless you got some hard luck dude who, just lost his job or is bored of working at a gas station. You're not walking into a college and convincing someone, unless they have some will to serve their country and you don't have any political opposition to the war in Iraq. Like, it was not the time to be joining the army. But yeah, I would work from like 7:30 to like 8 o'clock at night. There'd be days where I was a corporal and later made sergeant. I'm looking around the office to these disgruntled staff sergeants and sergeants first classes. And like, that was a wild experience being an E4, looking at these dudes that I am supposed to be looking up to, and like, they're not happy and they're experienced, and like, that's rough.
Yeah.
That was my first exposure to a sensing session where someone would come down, have everybody voice their complaints, and I'm like, why are we at a sensing session? This is it really that bad? More than once, I remember being at a Walmart at midnight on a Saturday because I didn't get enough names or numbers to come back and for my boss to say, okay, go home. It was bad. And like, I partially understand, but I'm still pretty bitter that about like, what are they supposed to do with somebody who's not a great speaker, not real experienced? They can't just say, okay, well, you can leave, because then everybody's going to start saying, well, I want to leave too. But I definitely don't think that way. Our particular leadership and U.S. Army Recruiting Command as a whole went about it was definitely very unhealthy. And I even remember they brought in a new station commander, E7, who was from what I understand, a superstar somewhere else, and to kind of turn things around, didn't. And I don't know if they forced him to retire or he did it of his own volition. He was, selling cars. By the time I left, he retired from the Army. He was a car salesman because things weren't going well. I remember getting just grilled over and over. In fact, there was a time where these paper planners that we have, every night at 2200 at 10 p.m., each station would gather around a phone in the office. And the first sergeant commander stayed at their office somewhere else, along with maybe 5 or 6 other stations, would call into this teleconference. The first sergeant would randomly call recruiters on this conference call, have the recruiter fax over your daily planner, like with what you did and accomplished, to him, and he would look at it, read it off in front of everybody, and would call the people you said you spoke to double check to see if you even spoke to these people or just like making it up.
Wow.
And would just put you on the spot for that. So yeah, here I am, E4, E5, got nothing but senior NCOs around me. Like, this is it was absolutely crazy, and I had to like mentally like button up and kind of autopilot through this, because they would tell you like, if you're not, they can get you for what was it? Not conduct on giving an NCO, but not doing your due diligence. I forget what the terminology was, but there was a threat there.
So like derelict to duty or something like that?
Something to that effect. To basically, like, if the numbers don't come up, they'll kick you out. And I don't know how real those threats were. I know that I got handed a lot of contracts, like work walk-ins, and it was tough. And I felt bad for my leadership, my first line supervisor. Like, what's he supposed to do with this E4, E5? It's like, he doesn't have the gift of gab. He doesn't know, like, what are we going to do? There was some good. I did enjoy when I would find some young kid that did, like, he had a genuine interest in being in the military and serving the country. And it would, likely better his position in the world. Had several that we would do PT a couple times a week, especially with ones that maybe close on tape. So, that was my first introduction to the world of being an NCO, non-commissioned officer, and kind of influencing, not my first introduction. I spent a lot of time, like, mentoring some of these kids that need to lose weight, be able to get in. So that was kind of cool, I guess. But otherwise, it was taking a heavy toll. Mentally, I had by that time I've been married for 2 years and my daughter was 2. So I've got this new young wife who I just married, took out of the state, and then now I don't see her for 11 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a miracle and a testament to her, a sense of integrity and intestinal fortitude that she stuck it out through that. There was more than one divorce among recruiters there in that station while I was there.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's tough. They say military and first responders and stuff has some of the highest divorce rates, and it's understandable why. You're never there, and when you are there, I'm sure you had many times where you probably weren't super fun to be around, because if you're having to do that miserable job all the time, even the best of us can't always compartmentalize it very well. So it's like, and then there's no judgment there. It happens, when you're overworked and you're overstressed, and sometimes it comes out in ways you don't intend. So yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, and I won't. I've definitely spoken with therapists in the past. The subject is very very interesting as far as the my personal background.
Well, I'm sure at that time, you said it was really tough. By that time, I'm sure that the shine had worn off of the idea, because, like, when 9/11 happened, recruitment numbers were huge, and everybody's like, "Yeah, let's do this," and then people start seeing the reality of what it means to go to war. And then, like I say, the news is you seeing guys getting blown up with IEDs all the time, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot, going to war kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah, there's a war part to it, Well, and having said all that, as much as I can, and they would bring this up all the time, as much as I complain about being a recruiter, and to kind of go back to the being chosen to be a recruiter part, my company first was like, I don't want to do this. And there's ways you can get out of being a recruiter. And one of the ways is having a profile. So, like, he was like, my first sergeant was like, hey, piece of Luttrell, go, like, let's see if we get you on a profile. So, like, and this was, I've always been kind of like a Dudley do everything right. This is really kind of wild, but I did it, and I don't want to point fingers at anybody else but myself for making the decision. But, like, I wore a sling. I went to daggone went to sick call and was like telling them, like, I fell and hurt myself and whatnot. Knowing my unit was about to deploy, and all these guys that were about to deploy, and so he was like, yeah, go try to get a profile. Maybe they'll kick you back. Well, they didn't. They took me anyways. I'm sorry. I was going somewhere with that. What was your question that I took you away from with that little story?
I was just, I think the last thing I had said about how, like, recruiting was tough at that time because the shine had worn off of, what it's like to join the Army.
Yeah.
And
so when I went to recruiting, and my unit deployed, the guys that came back on my tank, the tank that I would have been on, I think they were in the Humvee when this happened. One guy lost both his legs, and 2 other guys lost a leg each. So if I hadn't gone on recruiting, it's almost certain that I would have been in that Humvee when they hit that mine. So as much as it sucked to recruit and all that, it was still a blessing in disguise. It took me out of that deployment that they went on. So
yeah. So is it true, the stories you hear about some of your quotas and stuff as a recruiter, like they're aiming for so many demographics, so many male, female, stuff like that?
I got no idea how it is now, but we were, I think we had 1.5 or 2 enlistments per month per recruiter. Didn't matter. The only things that mattered were level of education. So high school diploma was awesome.
Yeah.
We put in less people with GEDs, but it didn't matter quite as much. And so you could, if you put your 2 in for the month, get some breathing room, people would leave you alone, but that would end, as soon as the next month started.
Yeah.
They want to know, like, what do you got in the sheet? Like, who are you talking to? What have you been working for the last, however long?
So did you try to sandbag your recruits? So like if you got 4 that month, you pushed them, or you put 2 this month and push 2 into the next month to cover yourself?
The good recruiters would. I didn't, because I never had 4 in the bag, so, or on the bench.
Yeah.
But yes, the good ones for sure.
Yeah, it just reminds me of my sales days of them being like, just because you've hit, your commissions, don't sandbag and push stuff into the next month. Push it all out, man.
Yeah. No, yeah, that would 100%
yeah.
I'd do that.
I mean, I had just heard and talking to some recruiters at one time, because you hear about in the news the Army is pushing to get more women in and stuff, so they would have like their command would come down and be like, you got to go get girls, like get girls in the Army, make it happen. So I didn't know if like any of that in your experience had actually really been a thing.
In 2005 to 2008, just bodies that could pass the ass fed. So
yeah. Anybody and everybody, huh?
Yep.
Which is, I'm trying to remember, because when I joined in 2009, it was weird. Like, because obviously when I walked in the building, they were like, yeah, we'll sign you up, because everybody they want to get their numbers up. But I can't say that I really remember, like, what it was like at that time.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely don't know what it's like nowadays.
I had another curiosity when you talked about the sergeant that was put in place. It was supposed to be, some kind of high speed put in place to correct kind of stuff. In my experience, at least, a lot, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people. They put those kind of people in a position like, oh, you're really good, and this place is really screwed, so we need you to fix it. And they send you over there, and they put you in charge of it. But then they have, like, your hands and feet handcuffed, where it's like, we don't actually want you to do things you would do to fix it. We want you to execute our policies that already aren't really working, but you're great, so somehow you'll make them work. Did you seem any kind of that way, or?
I mean, we had free reign to do whatever, but the market just wasn't there.
Yeah.
There were times I went out with one of the other senior recruiters who was a good recruiter. Like, he'd go to concerts, bars, and Friday night race car tracks, all kind of stuff. We'd go do that stuff, Like, there was literally just whatever you guys can do. Go do it.
Yeah.
There was a few. They did want us to like break into certain schools, like some of the schools in more well-to-do areas naturally would have less military or less recruiter presence, and so they did always want us to, try to, get buddy with some of the staff to get into some places and whatnot. But no, it was just a tough market, and the brigade leadership were assholes. So.
I mean, that's not unusual for brigade.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So you escaped there and finally got to do your dreams of the 25 Bravo thing, right?
Yep.
Okay, so if you could, what is a 25 Bravo?
Whatever Bravo is information technology specialist, and it's the 25 Bravo's going to be different based off of where you're at. So you get a baseline of knowledge regarding common operating systems, networking, the hardware, basic hardware on a desktop computer, a basic understanding of security and security policies and best practices, so that once you leave AIT, you can go work on the help desk, and so and so needs a printer installed, or their software updates are crashing the computer. You can go troubleshoot that. You might get pulled to do more specific things and get more specific training. I've done when I was stationed in Kuwait for a year. I was validating network diagrams and IP addresses. And then when I went to Colorado, I was running a help desk of soldiers, managing cell phones, because obviously every unit's got they fall under a contract the Army bought for cell phones. You have to upgrade folks' phones, and sometimes go like slap majors on the wrist for making too many phone calls. We had a stack of servers that we would have to manage, and we would work with the warrant officers who would manage those, and the firewalls, and cross train, and that. So just kind of Bravo is kind of a catch-all for anything IT related. There's a few other more specific MOSs out there, but 25Bs have, like, you could take 5 from across the Army, and you might get 5 very different experiences, but all in the realm of IT.
So, like, and correct me, and this is a bit of an oversimplification, but it's kind of like you're the tech support guys of the Army. Okay.
100%. Yep.
Okay.
So at the when I was assigned to a medical command, we not only maintained or helped. We were the hands-on for the physical networking for the buildings. So we would call higher echelon folks that managed the network at a higher level if there were some problems going on. When a unit deploys, they take with them all of their physical servers and networking equipment. So we would be setting that up, plugging it in. It's like when a medical command deploys, they take a brigade level operations center. So like 100 people in big giant tents. 100 people need 100 laptops. So 100 laptops have to have cables run to switches. The switches have to have configurations that we would put on them. And then there's servers with all the data they would use. So we would also manage the data backups for all that stuff. Whereas at an infantry brigade, which I was assigned to at Fort Carson for the last 3 years I was in the Army, well, 3 of the last years, sort of the same thing. Get a brigade level talk that goes out there, and you have to have sort of pre-cut cabling and an idea where all of your networking items are going to go. So when the infantry guys throw up their tent, you're throwing the networking equipment in. I'll have soldiers around laying cable all over the place in a logical way, so that the folks in the op center can do their job without tripping the cables. But you would have to sort of be a basic troubleshooter for like the systems that manage mortars and do the calculations for that, and battlefield tracking, and all these layers of specific systems. And then you might come back in from the field, and now you're trying to get like Microsoft patches deployed to 150 computers, or ensuring that patches are deploying and working, and so on. So I don't know. There's a wide range of things that a 25B could do.
You've said it a couple times, the TALK. I don't remember what the TALK stands for.
TALK is Tactical Operations Center. Okay. Yeah. So a TALK will be either a battalion level or brigade level or higher headquarters. And like I said, that's where you'll have 75 to 150 folks that manage all sorts of systems across whatever size element they belong to.
Okay.
So like all the scenes in the movies, you see like a bunch of big screens or projectors and a bunch of dudes with headsets on, looking at different computers, and Mr. President, they fired nukes. That's kind of what it is.
Okay,
Not that
gotcha.
interesting. So
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, I mean, I've heard it 1,000 times, but I couldn't remember if I actually knew what it meant,
yep. And actually, the talk in that I worked in Iraq was it was like 4 or 5 N113 personal carriers, so small track vehicle backed up to a building with holes cut in the building, because each track had a particular system that it managed, and cables would be run from those inside to a bunch of laptops. And another reason I went 25 Bravo was on these secret networks. One of the Bravos had managed to smuggle in Command and Conquer and Age of Empires onto the secret network. So at night, like us and the battle captains, the captains who were assigned to like tracking the battlefield, monitoring all these things, would play like Age of Empires, until some mortars started falling, and then we'd have to stop and
Yeah.
do our work. Do our
I'll
job.
tab out and.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's funny you bring that up, because I was going to ask you if you guys, if anyone in your job did like the monitoring of the systems when people were like, using the computers for what they weren't supposed to. Because I got caught one time. It was an accident, but we had like Diablo and a couple other games on a disc, and I picked up the wrong disc to put into my computer to work on some plans for what I was doing in transportation. And so like I click into it, and Diablo starts up, and then immediately I get an email about like, hey bro, like what are you doing on your computer? And
so that level of tracking normally happens at the installation. So there's some GS12 civilian that would get a warning pop up or whatever that, hey, there's some weird stuff happening in this computer out there. So not at our level. However, we would respond to that. So a couple times over the course of my career, I did get a call from the base, the network operations center. Hey, showing this is happening in this particular computer. You need to go, put hands on it, check it out. Like in one case, it was a colonel who he clicked like a phishing link, like a legit phishing link. So he had to go, sanitize it and kind of be the button pusher for whatever direction you got from the cyber defense echelon above us. In another case, some dude just straight looking at porn. So you go grab the laptop, show up at the company, like, hey, I'm so and so from Brigade. I got to confiscate this laptop for time being because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and you fill it out, do a hand receipt for it. Yeah, we had a little hand.
I bet that one happened a lot.
No, only a couple times over the 15 years I was in. Oh, at least that I knew of.
My dude was really cool. He was some E4, and he contacted me, and he's like, hey man, like I don't want you to get you in trouble. Just redo the whatever class, send it to me, and like I'll clear your file, and I won't tell your sergeant about it. And so I got away with, but I swear, like it was an accident. I was just dumb and shouldn't have had that disc near the other stuff,
Yeah.
But
what? Yeah. In the one case for me, it was talking to the cyber guys. I had to go to this. He was a battalion commander. Hey, sir, I just need you to review these slides regarding, good email practices, and let me know when you're done, and I can tell him to re-enable your account.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I'm just imagining now, like all the dudes with the, the hard drives of their
stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely easier back in the, it was easier 10 years ago to get stuff on the network. Nowadays, it's not really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nowadays, like I remember doing classes in like the computer lab in our reserve building. And even if someone plugged in like a cable to charge their phone, it would immediately, someone's running in the room. Like,
yeah. You'll get a phone call when a new drive appears for sure. So.
It was like they hadn't even plugged the phone in. It was just like, hey, weird USB, like it's not supposed to be plugged in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's definitely, it's a lot of rules based on where you're at regarding USB access, and someone's gonna get a little alarm.
What is that? The physical data awareness or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you did that. You deployed doing that. You said, right?
So yeah, I when I went to Germany, I was on. Was about 7 months out from deploying to Afghanistan to take over as the medical command for all of Afghanistan. So managing all the medical units, all the like blood supplies, and at the time, the Army was making a big push to finally like get all our medical records done electronically. So, like stuff was stuck getting lost.
Yeah.
So I had a hand assisting the because the Army had a big system called MC4, like MC little 4, because it meant like command control and some other garbage. I don't remember. But ideally, when you go see a medic at like the aid station, you would punch your stuff into a computer and then sync that with a server, and that server would sync up something higher so that each little problem you had, wouldn't get lost in the system. But that required a certain amount of networking and all that. So I did that, as well as just basic help desk support for the unit. It's a lot of cable running and troubleshooting, dying computers, and like, well, yeah, this desktop is dying because there's an inch of dust on the inside because you left it on the floor in Attack in Afghanistan. Did some traveling by C-130, which is pretty cool. Yeah, just managing networks for medical folks.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. In the Army, I didn't know this, but you can come in as you got a degree as a doctor, or dentist or something. You can come in as a major.
Yeah.
Like you just walk in the door as a major. And so like I was an E5 at the time, and I would consistently forget that, coming from like the very rigid, hard-nosed world of armor, and then, taking a little break in recruiting, coming to the medical world. Like we'd go to the range as NCOs, and you'd have to like, hey, go make sure Major so-and-so is pointing her pistol in the right direction and her finger's not on the trigger. And I definitely remember a lot of coaching at the range of more senior officers.
Maybe if you take a couple of shots for them to make sure they qual, like that would be cool.
No, I didn't do that. They could take it out on their own, But definitely, like, hey, let's hold it like this instead of that.
Yeah. So were you actually assigned to that medical unit, or were you a part of a 25 Bravo unit that was like attached to them as their support?
So the Army does have signal commands, and those signal commands will kick out battalions and companies to go support certain elements and whatnot. But I was never assigned a signal, which from what I understand is a good thing. I was assigned directly to the medical command. We had a 05 lieutenant colonel as an OIC, and several captains, a couple warrants, and then it was like 6 sergeants or specialists.
Yeah.
And so we would just do the basic IT support for them, help set up the talk like I kind of described earlier. And
well, I'm sure that had to be nice, though, because like a lot of people don't realize the difference between assigned and attached to. Because if you were just attached to, you fall under your unit's rules and blah, blah, and you got to do all their bull crap. But if you're assigned to the medical units, like you say, in my experience, they're all super chill. So you get to be super chill with them.
Yeah, but that's how it was. It was great because, they're medical folks. Their whole goal is to like take care of people and whatnot. So it was good. It was nice.
They're not out there like, yeah, we got a PT every day at 3:30 in the morning and then again at 10 o'clock at night. And
I mean, we still put our PT in on our section on our own, and we did we did field exercise. I remember once like laying in a puddle at the range in full wet weather gear for hours on end.
Yeah, that's always fun.
But yeah, it was definitely
very, very different experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's one thing that I find particularly interesting about someone like you who was, because like I try to keep the focus of this on non-combat stuff because there's 1,000 combat podcasts out there. So I think it's very cool to try getting your perspective, having been in a combat unit and then shifting over to a non-combat unit, and just, because people don't realize it's like, it's 2 totally different worlds.
It is, and it is. There's definitely a level of like coming from a combat unit, a level of things you can bring to the table. As far as like basic soldier skills that kind of get relied upon to help maintain, I guess, among the ranks of them. But in this particular unit, we worked on a Kasern. It's a German word for something that I don't remember, but it was very small. It was like 1 square mile, maybe 2. And it had its own bar. So like we'd have end of day formation on Friday, right in front of the bar, and then walk over to the bar. Or while I was in Afghanistan, being close with the the supply NCO for the brigade was just beneficial. You get to see things. You get to speak to a lot of senior officers and senior NCOs and learn things and pick things up maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. Definitely, you definitely learn how to speak to senior folks regarding like, if there's a real problem you need to get across. Like there's a certain amount of tact required to say, "Hey, sir, this is broken. We need to. This is a big deal." Or more than once. Like I remember one time we were wrapping up a field exercise. I was standing on top of a Connex, ground guiding a. I don't remember if it was a forklift or a 5-ton or an LMTV, and this the dentist, was he a dentist? He might have been. I think he was a dentist. He walked up. He was a colonel, and there was like 6 colonels in the unit. Big, thick glasses, and he's like yelling at me, asking me like why his phone's not working. Not yelling at me, like he wasn't being mean, but he was yelling because it was very noisy, so he was working stuff up. Asking about his phone, and I'm like, "Sir, you're gonna have to hang on. Like, let me finish doing this. I'll come look at your phone problem here in a second."
Just the kind of what do you call that? Not obliviousness,
like awareness.
But,
no, it was oblivious. It was oblivious. Yeah. Moving vehicles, people running around, things happening, potential for injury.
Well, he's a dentist. He's a doctor type. He's like, he didn't join the army to be concerned with army things. He's just like, I can understand. And as long as they're cool about it. So talking about like ground guiding and stuff, that was the biggest thing being in transportation was like, because we worked with all different types of units. We worked with medical units, infantry units, tankers, Cav, all kinds of different stuff. So like, as long as they were cool about like, hey, I know I don't know what you're doing, so like you can do it. It was fine. But then you have some of those other officers that were like, hey, we need to get this stuff on these things and we need to move that. And it's like, well, like, sir, these trucks have certain configurations and weight limits and certain things you're supposed to go. We've already figured all this out. Like, it's our job. We've made the whole plan. No, like, this is the way you're going to do it. Like, yeah. All right, man.
I can't, I think I'm lucky. I don't think I really encountered that. At least there. Except maybe, that one particular instance, but he wasn't like particularly forceful about it still.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of those, let's say in my experience, not that they're mean about it. They're just they have their little tunnel vision of just like, hey, I'm trying to do my little dentist thing and my stuff's not working, so I got to go find the guy to help me. Not even realizing, like, he has other things going on. Yeah. Like, there's those potentially dangerous things happening.
Wow. Phone's not a priority anymore.
It is what it is. Yeah. Overall, being the 25 Bravo thing, did you enjoy that time much better, I assume?
I enjoyed it and being a tanker for different reasons. 25 Bravo was pretty over the years. I can't lie. Because it's nice to be the smart guy that people come to with problems. When I was here at Carson for 3 years, I was assigned to an infantry brigade. You got 150 people in the brigade headquarters, a half dozen majors, there's more captains than there are specialists walking around. I had the brigade commander and the sergeant major's phones on my phone, because they would call me when stuff would go crazy, directly. And that's nice. It's nice to be valued, at that level, based on your technical knowledge. Yeah, I can't. Well, I only had one ego problem to major while I was there, but the vast majority, even combat arms, all these combat arms officers and a lot of West Point were still no problems at all. For a while, the Army transitioned from, they started using Microsoft licenses for to get OneDrive and a bunch of other, and Microsoft Teams.
Ugh.
I don't know if you guys use Teams at all.
I haven't, but just talking about Microsoft and OneDrive is it's I hate it. It sucks.
Yeah. Well, there was so the Army was, all those things require licenses to have those things. Now, Army didn't want to pay to have everybody on a 5,000 soldier brigade to have licenses. So they had to take some things away and give it back. And I was the sole person in the whole brigade that had the power to go in and hand out licenses to people. So I had to, I knew all of the, had conversations with almost all of the company commanders across the brigade, because they were asking like, hey, my supply guy needs this, my NBC, NCO, the folks that need to manage inventory need access to this stuff. And, I never really had any problems with, people being pricks about really anything, except for that one guy.
Just even bringing up the idea of the licenses with Microsoft, what a ridiculous concept it is that the Army is having to require there should be one blanket, we made this deal with Microsoft, we pay one rate, everybody gets to use it how we dictate. The whole having to manage licenses for because I'm sure they tried to nickel and dime every little bit of it too. The PowerPoint?
Oh, there were levels of licenses that have to go in, and there were levels of what people could do based off the license, and we were given hey, these ranks get this X, Y, and Z, and by exception to everything else, and it was a pain, and it's it makes them a lot of money to hand out invisible certificates that allow you to do something for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, whoever struck up that deal, Jesus,
Yeah, there's even worse things out there as far as licenses that I don't even want to get into.
Well, it's like when you even bring up
DoD.
OneDrive, the way that OneDrive is automatically set up on all the computers these days. This is the first thing I remove when I get a new computer, because I've had it, automatically connect to other stuff, and now it's sharing things between computers that I didn't intend to share, and it's it's not even that I'm doing anything nefarious. I just don't want these things happening,
Yeah.
And,
I don't need this convenience. That's not really a convenience.
Yeah. And it's we've gotten so far from, hey, a lot of these companies took what the military was building, because you look at even the start of the internet in general, and how it started off with the military contracts and the sending that, what was it, the 4-letter word or whatever across the whole, sorry, I forget the whole thing, but it's just all that spawned out of all those kind of things. And now here we are as this giant entity in the military, crawling to Microsoft going oh, please let me pay you for this stuff that doesn't work, and it's going to screw up all the time.
They got us over a barrel. And there are things that are even worse happening right now that I won't get into, as far as money spent on just licenses to operate something.
Yeah. So did you get out? Were you already out of the Army when the what was it, the CrowdStrike thing happened?
Was that the one where airports across the country were down?
Yeah, well, it affected a ton of systems globally because it was linked. It wasn't Microsoft, but it was linked through Microsoft stuff. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I was just curious, if that was a big headache for the military at all, or anything they used.
I don't know. Yeah, I was out. That was it late 2023 or 24, early 24. I don't know. Yeah,
I was out early 24. So, and you said you got out in 23, was it?
Yeah. So after I did my stint as an instructor in 2018, I went to, instead of going back to what I did after instructing, instead of going to West Point to manage servers, or going to Belgium to work under NATO, and my wife was I don't want to do those things. Well, the Army's going to decide for me sooner or later. The Army decided for me, so they sent me to Kuwait to a signal command 551st Signal Command, which was actually an Army Reserve unit, which was very weird for me. But it had a small component of active duty soldiers, about 20 soldiers. So the unit itself was reserve. They would mob like once a year a bunch of different dudes. They had like a 3-star or a 2-star, and they were in charge of the whole central, theater comms wise. Like, so all the long distance networking done from Jordan to Egypt to Israel, blah, blah, blah. They would manage that. And they had a small component of active duty guys that we worked with the contractor folks. So a huge amount of contractors did all the actual work. So it was all captains, and our boss was a colonel, and a handful of NCOs. So I did that for a year, and it was awesome. And then they sent me to Carson because I wanted to see Colorado while I was in the Army, and that was pretty cool. And then the Army sent me to Kuwait, and I was like, I'm sorry, not Kuwait, Korea, for my 20th year in the Army. And I was like, I'm done. So I dropped my retirement packet while I was in Korea. I went by myself. So I left my wife and kids home back here in Carson, came back home, interned with Northrop Grumman, and still here.
So what happened in Korea that made you want out?
The going to Korea.
Just didn't like. Was it the being removed from the family again kind of thing, or?
It was. So there were a number of things. Number one, I had 19 years in the Army, and they want to send me to Korea. And I was like, I'm ready to look at retiring and being done, not uprooting my family, or doing a 1-year tour by myself. Being in the States to look for a job is much easier than it is on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And we'd been talking about it for a little while. I enjoyed my time in the Army. I enjoyed bouncing around, doing different things, but we finally wanted some stability. Our daughter was in a school and seemed to be doing well, and that was a big part of it. Was I had she's 18 now, so she was 15 or 16, middle of high school. So we didn't want to uproot her and drag her over to Korea. And by the time I was done in Korea, the Army was going to send me somewhere else. So we didn't want to disrupt the kids' schooling.
Yeah.
It wasn't the last move was really hard on my oldest daughter while in middle school. Transitioning, and I didn't want to see that anymore. And I really like Colorado. I spent my growing up in South Carolina. I was in Boy Scouts. We did a lot of hiking to Appalachians. It was real pretty, and it was always kind of a dream to be here and see the cool stuff and do the cool stuff. And it was not near, my wife's family, who she also did not want to be right next to them. So kind of checked that block. I knew that there's a huge contingent of IT jobs available that are DoD related that I could maintain my security clearance through in the area. So I was like, the heck with it. I'm gonna as soon as I got on the ground in Korea, I started work on figuring out how to drop my packet. And so I think I dropped it 6 months after getting there. I started doing interviews, and I submitted for SkillBridge. I don't know if you're familiar with what SkillBridge is.
No.
So the Army's SkillBridge program, there's another name for it that escapes me right now. But it's an internship program where prior to you leaving the military, if you get accepted by the company, who has to be approved by DoD, you can basically leave your unit early, go intern with the company for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, be done with the internship, come back to the Army, final out, and then leave the Army. And still get your terminal leave. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get processed because there's several echelons to go all the way up to the top of the Army to approve it, and your brigade leadership has to approve it. There's at some level it comes across somebody appointed by post commander that has to approve it. It happens often. It's targeted at younger soldiers who the Army doesn't want them to just get out and be entirely clueless. And a lot of these programs, they're full-on training programs where they offer certs, or in this case, the company had a slot for the internship, and so I did all that paperwork. I submitted 20 different resumes. I did several interviews while I was in Korea, 2 a.m. My time.
Yeah, the time change. Got accepted by the one, pushed that up. Got
got approval for that, so I came home and spent I think two months, was it, interning. So I would just show up for work. There are certain clauses like what the Army requires. Normally, you go see your company commander and say, "All right, hey, this is what I expect from you." Younger soldiers, they might actually have to do like call in once a day back to his unit. Hey, I'm still alive. I was at E7. Once I left, like I think I emailed my supervisor like once or twice. Finished because I began doing all my clearing stuff prior to leaving. So once I finished my internship here in Colorado, I was still active duty. I just had to make a phone call on post and showed up, signed some paperwork, and I left. And that was that. There was no big hurrah, no nothing. I signed my retirement stuff, and then I signed out on leave, and that was that.
Wow. No, yeah, that's actually kind of amazing. Is that something that's only afforded to active duty, or is it something they've started more recently?
It's been around a while. I don't know how it works with reserves. I think it doesn't.
I mean, it's just a program that I've never even heard of. So,
yeah, it's SkillBridge, Army SkillBridge, or I forget what the other word for it. Like, there's a whole website you can go to, and an Army-run website. You can look up companies in different areas that are looking for certain things. You can contact them. Some of them, it's more like a job application process where they want to see a full-on resume. So when I went through TAP, the Army Transition
Assistance Program.
Yeah. When I went through that, I did a resume up. Some of them was more like them wanting to get you accepted into like a training program. Like Microsoft does it. Google does it for different things. It was a huge pain in the butt. You don't get all the paperwork done on time and hound people for answers because I was having to talk to my branch, more than once, as well as the brigade leadership, which was, that was easy as an E7 as a sergeant first class, but I imagine as a younger soldier it might be more difficult to push the paperwork through. But it's something you got to start early. Like, ideally, if you know you're ETSing by this date, you have to start that. You want to start that like a full year out.
Yeah,
like getting that ball rolling.
But I mean, even still, that's like a great program that I wish if there was something like that for reservists. Because they have the transition assistance, and they talk about like, oh, we'll coach you on helping to fill out a resume and going looking for jobs, but like half that crap doesn't help at all. I mean, it's just the reality, and they're seeing a lot with companies right now. I mean, you see it in the news that companies are getting called out again for, what do they call it, ghost interviewing or whatever. They've got all these applications to make themselves look good, like they're hiring to make them look good to the stockholders, but they're not actually hiring people. They're just faking growth to make it look. And that was my case. I mean, I applied to all kinds of places that said they would take my transportation experience and they would bring me on and just, train me, or they, like you said, maintain your security clearances, that whatever. Like, man, I didn't get barely anywhere at all in half those interview processes. Or they're like, oh yeah, we require you to have a bachelor's degree to pack peanuts. Like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. Like, what?
And that taught me some things. Like, having 20 years experience, like that definitely skewed it in my favor in lieu, because I don't have it. Maybe I'll get one one day. And I'm not entirely sure how often. Most of the internships I applied to had a clause that said, you could have X amount of experience. But it was like 5 to 10 years or something like that. I'm like, okay, I got 15 years doing IT stuff, no problem, and a bunch of certificates or certs. But there were several that I still applied to. They had bachelor's requirements, and I got considered for, and I'm sure there were plenty that they saw no degree, and they just said no. Because, like I said, I submitted like 15 or 20 different, applications for this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just one of those where, I mean, like a bachelor's degree is great and all, but for the most part, colleges teach you like the baseline. They don't, really teach you how to do the job. Like, yeah, you learn a lot there, but you having 20 years experience, you could walk into so many places, get like a 2-week course on the specifics, and probably be good for like 90% of the stuff, because you have actual hands-on with so much of it. It's more of just like learning the finer details of. And
Yeah, and I mean, there's also something to be said for being dedicated to really anything that I think employers value. But having said that, I've definitely been been blown out of the water by some graduates I've worked with. I like them; they're all really smart kids. But I have definitely been pondering, asking, like, "Hey, can I work like part time so I can go to school to be as smart as some of these 22-year-olds that are killing me out here?"
Yeah. Well,
but also, the world of IT is definitely different.
Well, college is fine and all, but it's the practical application too. I mean, the ability. You have a lot of college graduates they go to start working for places and they don't know how to type because they've used touchscreens their entire lives. So it's like you can know how the system works all you want, but if you can't use the equipment, you know what I mean? So it's just having that balance like between the two things, you know?
Yeah. I actually not directly related because it doesn't really matter. I did have one young guy come to work to ask me what a note said because somebody left him a note in cursive. Yes, it says this. So, yeah.
Well, and see, that's where like me as management, if I'm looking at a situation like that, I'm looking at a guy like if I need two people, I hire one guy like you who's had 20 years practical experience. I hire one person like them out of school and then find a way to put you guys together so that you can take that education and show them to work together, to apply it in a way that actually like means something, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to think that's what they're doing with me. So,
but it's awesome though that I think it's great, and I want to try to find a way to bring more awareness that the program even exists, or that someone like because more often than not, the story is I got out of the Army and couldn't find a job even within my field, you know?
Yeah, and that's once I really started learning about it, I did push it real hard with a lot of my guys, and I got one of them into it as well, one of the E4s that I had. And like I said, it's SkillBridge. No, it's got two names: SkillBridge and something else. And it's definitely something if nobody pushes you for, you have to go ask for. And there is an office on every Army post that the TAP folks can point you to, point anybody to, and you go take some classes and learn about it and figure out. But it also takes some initiative, like. They're going to give you what you need, but there's going to be you have to care. I got told often that the person that cares most about your career, is you. Yeah. Over the years, and so like you have to go after it and want it, and it is pretty disappointing that more folks don't know, like just how beneficial it could be. And it's also sad because all of these young guys get these briefings, but probably just don't listen at some point.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of that. But I mean, there's also, like I say, I'm an example, and I know plenty of other people who did try, and just all the roadblocks are thrown up, and it's like it's near impossible. Well, even like some of those, what are they, like Hero to Hired, and some of those civilian ones. Like a lot of them they're just like headhunting agencies. So they're like, they get paid off of getting you a job, whether that's at McDonald's or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, they don't really give a crap about actually getting you a good career in what you're looking for.